Good, 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 good. Right? Good.
Ladies and gentlemen, the national anthem of Barbados by the St. Leonard's Boys Choir. Please remain standing for prayer, and we invite the Right Reverend Monsignor Vincent, Chairman of the Barbados Christian Council.
Good evening, everyone. I will not read from any particular scripture because we are a multi-religious society and we respect the sacred writings of all people, the Bible, the Gita, the Quran, and the wisdom sayings of our ancestors. However, I would like to remind you that we are called Bajuns, and in Hindi, Bajun, Bajan, is a religious word meaning sacred music. I was also reminded by the Supreme High Priest of the Voodoo Council of Haiti that Bajan is a voodoo word for a sacred place. In a sense, then, we are here embraced by a sacred space, and we carry both the African and the Asian spirituality. Let us pray. God of our ancestors, Lord of the Caribbean, Creator of the universe, you led our forefathers through the Middle Passage, many wearing the chains of slavery to be sold into markets and at the gates of the cities of the region. Creator God, our ancestors never forgot you, and they were conscious that it was you who led them through the rough seas and who guided their every step. They call you Allah, Jah, Jehovah, Lakshmi, and Vishnu. Some call you Ogun and Voodoo, Shango and Santeria, and some Yahweh. Our ancestors worship you under the baobab tree and under the sacred silk cotton trees. Some worship you along the banks of the Caroni, while others took to the hills and the forests. Some erected ashrams and shrines and temples to glorify your name. With bells and shells, with drums and cymbals, with candles and flambeaux, with calabash and lota, they came to offer their oblation and pour libation to the God who would rescue them from oppression. God of our ancestors, we ask that you pour forth your blessings upon all the heads of government meeting here in this sacred place, this Bajan. We pray for the Prime Minister of Barbados, the Right Honorable Frendel Stuart, as he takes on the mantle of leadership. May he and all the other heads of government draw strength from the collective wisdom of our ancestors as they continue the journey along the path to true development and liberation. And we ask this in your name, for you are our God. And I'll end with a doxology that is Caribbean, and we all might know and can participate in it. One love, one heart, let's get together and feel all right. One love, one heart, let's get together and feel all right. Thank you. God bless this proceeding.
Thank you very much, Right Reverend Monsignor Vincent. And please be seated, everyone. Thank you. His Excellency Sir Elliot Belgrave, Governor General of Barbados. The Right Honorable Frendel Stuart, Prime Minister of Barbados, and Chairman of the Conference of Heads of Government of the Caribbean Community, and host of this 36th meeting of the conference. Heads of government of member states and the associate members of CARICOM and their respective delegations. Ambassador Urban Larocque, Secretary General of CARICOM. Ministers of Foreign Affairs and other cabinet-level ministers of the Caribbean community and beyond. Special guests of this 36th conference here present, including His Excellency Ban Ki-moon, Secretary General of the United Nations, His Excellency Kamalesh Sharma, Secretary General of the Commonwealth, His Excellency Dr. Patrick Gomes, Secretary General of the African, Caribbean, and Pacific Secretariat. Special invitees to this opening ceremony, including His Excellency Rudolph Alexandre, President du Conseil of Region French Guiana, the Honorable Michael Eman, Prime Minister of Aruba, Monsieur Jean-Yves Lacascade, External Affairs and Diplomatic Advisor, representing the President of the Regional Council of Martinique, Madame Thérèse Marianne Pepin, President of the Cooperation Commission, representing the President of the Regional Council of Guadeloupe, the Honorable Sir Marston Gibson, Chief Justice of Barbados, Her Honor, Senator Carrie-Anne Eiffel, President of the Senate of Barbados, His Honor, Mr. Michael Carrington, Speaker of the House of Assembly of Barbados, Ms. Mia Mottley, Leader of the Opposition in Barbados, former Prime Minister Sir Lloyd Sandiford and the Right Honorable Owen Arthur, the Right Reverend Monsignor Vincent, Chairman of the Barbados Christian Council, and representatives of judicial bodies from across the region, and in particular, the Caribbean Court of Justice. Also members of the Diplomatic Corps, members of both Houses of Parliament of Barbados, heads of international, hemispheric, and regional organizations and bodies, and representatives of the private sector, including business, labor, and civil society, heads of departments and other senior public servants, and representatives of civic groups and, in particular, youth organizations not considered part of civil society, and members of the media, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Welcome all to the 36th regular meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of the Caribbean Community, CARICOM, here at Hilton, Barbados. You've heard the choir of St. Leonard's Boys render the national anthem, and they have remained in position to perform for you the CARICOM song and the selection Climb Every Mountain. Ladies and gentlemen, St. Leonard's Boys Choir.
From many distant lands, our forefathers came, some seeking adventure, some bounding chains. Through battles waged and fought, through victory and pain, by testing the courage of freedom was gained. Great and diverse be our ethnicities, the bonds that unite us are stronger than these. We dine, we pray and love, we dance and we play, we read to each other the West Indian way. Let us the people united, determined and steadfast we stand. We come to a brand new horizon, the future of in our hands. Raise our voices.
You've just heard a contingent of the St. Leonard's 100 Boys Choir, a choir of which we are very proud here in Barbados. Thank you, ladies. Some have described them as revolutionary. Some have found them to be even life-changing. And the word heroic has also been used to describe them. St. Leonard's 100 Boys Choir. Music lovers in Barbados love them. They were formed in 2008 with the express purpose of developing choral singing and music on a whole in the island. And this Barbadian choir of national acclaim continues to play a prominent role of interpreter and champion of the still underappreciated classical genre. It's been praised for its distinctive choral textures, lush harmonic palette, to which you've just been treated, lyrical melodic sense, juicy chord changes, and more. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, for the St. Leonard's 100 Boys Choir, a contingent today, we thank you. Next on our program this evening is an address from His Excellency Erwin Larocque, Secretary General of CARICOM. Please welcome His Excellency Erwin Larocque. Thank you.
His Excellency Sir Elliot Belgrave, Governor General of Barbados, Right Honorable Frundle Stewart, Prime Minister of Barbados and Chairman of Conference of Heads of Government of the Caribbean Community, Right Honorable Perry Christie, Prime Minister of the Bahamas and outgoing Chairman of Conference, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Heads of Government of the Caribbean Community, distinguished special guests, including Their Excellencies, the Secretaries General of the United Nations, the Commonwealth, the African, Caribbean, and Pacific Group of States, and the Organization of American States, special invitees to the opening ceremony, including Prime Minister of Aruba, President and representatives of the regional councils of French Guiana, Guadeloupe, and Martinique, honorable ministers, Honorable Sir Maston Gibson, Chief Justice of Barbados, Her Honor Senator Kerry-Ann Ifill, President of the Senate, His Honor Mr. Michael Carrington, Speaker of the House of Assembly, Honorable Mia Motley, Leader of the Opposition, heads and representatives of regional and international organizations, ambassadors to the Caribbean community and other members of the diplomatic corps, members of parliament, distinguished guests, people of the Caribbean community. Welcome to the 36th regular meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of the Caribbean community. The excellent arrangements for this evening's opening ceremony is a fine example of how our hosts, the government and people of Barbados, have organized this meeting to create an atmosphere conducive to productive discussions. The CARICOM family and guests are all beneficiaries of your gracious and generous hospitality. It is my pleasure to extend a special welcome and congratulations to the new members of the conference, His Excellency Brigadier David Granger, President of Guyana, the Honorable Donaldson Romeo, Premier of Montserrat, and Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris, Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis. We look forward to your contributions in advancing our integration arrangements. The democratic process has also ensured that the Honorable Roosevelt Skerritt, Prime Minister of Dominica, maintains his presence in the conference. Congratulations on your election, Prime Minister. I also warmly welcome the Honorable Dr. Orlando Smith for having retained the Premiership of the British Virgin Islands following last month's elections. Their presence here this afternoon is a result of our proud tradition of free and fair elections, which are the bedrock of a politically stable society. Let me at this point express my gratitude and thanks to the Right Honorable Perry Christie, Prime Minister of the Bahamas, for his dynamic stewardship of the community over the past 6 months. Prime Minister, your shrewd guidance and unwavering commitment provided sterling leadership to these trying times, and you're always present whenever I call on you. Thank you. Your extensive outreach activities serve the community well regionally and internationally, and assured it of a prominent profile. Thank you, Prime Minister. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, our quest for economic, social, environmental, and technological resilience aligns with the current global agenda. The issues of climate change, sustainable development goals, financing for development, technology transfer, and capacity building are among the key areas under discussion, both within our community and in various fora internationally. The development priorities identified in these negotiations will determine in what areas global resources will be focused in the immediate future, and how the financial resources for development are to be dispensed, and the criteria for disbursement are crucial factors to our community. Last September in Samoa, CARICOM and other SIDS came together and outlined our priorities for a successful conclusion to the negotiations of these most important issues. During this conference of heads of government, we will engage with our special guest, the Secretary General of the United Nations, His Excellency Ban Ki-moon, to emphasize the urgency of the moment as we seek to advance our sustainable development agenda. The unified approach that we have demonstrated in these negotiations once again emphasizes the value of our foreign policy coordination. That coordination assumes even greater importance as we consider the systemic changes in the global and hemispheric political economy. In developing a vision for the place of this community globally in the future, we need to appreciate our strengths, which include, but are not limited to, our geographic location and our joint voice. We must also take into account that our small landmass is supplemented by vast marine resources. Coordination in ensuring that those resources are protected and used to the benefit of the community can add a new dimension to our integration efforts. Integral to the development of that vision is an appreciation of the fact that we are not alone in trying to achieve our objectives. Our growing list of international partners is as a consequence of our outreach to embrace like-minded states and establish new partnerships while maintaining our traditional ties as we seek to reposition ourselves and advance our interests internationally. Our engagement with the President of Panama at this meeting is indicative of that thrust. We are advancing our integration process even as we expand our global connections. The successful operation of the single market continues, and in the near future, its administrative procedures will be enhanced to the benefit of our private sector and skilled workers. The review of our education and human resource development systems is well underway as we seek to ensure that the people of the Caribbean community are equipped with 21st century competencies to enhance our competitiveness and sustainability. Proposals are being put forward to stimulate growth in our economies and overcome the debt burden. Work is progressing towards establishing guidelines for a regime on fiscal rules to promote fiscal responsibility. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, there is no doubt that among the key elements that would help us sustain a growth path and combat the stubbornly high unemployment rate is the private sector investment and entrepreneurship. The entrepreneurial spirit of innovation, creativity, and risk-taking is essential to succeed in an ever-changing and increasingly competitive global marketplace. Just 3 days ago, I was excited by the entrepreneurial spirit and the activity of our youth as we engaged in a social media event here in Barbados, across the region and the diaspora, highlighting that aspect of the development. They demonstrated to me that creativity and innovation are alive and well in our community and will help us to compete and succeed in this demanding and dynamic world. Their belief and confidence in their abilities and commitment to the region engender optimism in the future. This is embodied, for instance, by Warren Castle Jr. of Montserrat, a 16-year-old who started in business at age 8 and from his small regional base is using his skills and technology to provide services across the region and further afield. He is also an international bestseller author and a motivational speaker on mission to inspire his peers to maximize their potential. Then there's Nolana Lynch of Trinidad and Tobago, who started a successful company 5 years ago at age 22 and uses profits from her sales to fund sustainable development projects throughout the community. Ms. Lynch has grown from providing friends and family with a product to a regional and international supplier. Her sustainable raw materials are supplied by rural women or producers throughout the Caribbean. These are but 2 examples of what the future of our Caribbean community can be. making use of their skills and using the platform of opportunities provided by our regional arrangements, such as the single market and economy. It is young people like Warren and Nolana who are showing the way towards a viable and prosperous society built on a regional foundation. They are demonstrating that the sustainable development of the Caribbean community can be achieved with the marriage of our human and natural resources to our innate skills, innovative ideas, and hard work. The ingredients for success lie within us. Unleashing the dynamism and creativity which have been the hallmark of our region, and using that distinctive Caribbean vibrancy to build our society on our own terms will put us on the path to create the resilience we need. In closing, I am confident that the deliberations of our heads of government and the outcome of this meeting will advance the development of our Caribbean community. I do thank you.
Our next speaker is the Right Honorable Perry G. Christie, Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, the outgoing chairman of the conference.
Thank you very much. To the Honorable Frondell Stewart, Prime Minister of Barbados and Chairman of the Conference of the Caribbean Community. To my other colleague presidents and prime ministers and representatives who are on the podium, I accept the protocol. To those of you who have been recently elected as a living testimony and evidence of the continuing expression of our democracy in this region. To our invited guests, His Excellency Ban Ki-moon, Secretary General of the United Nations, to Secretary General of the Commonwealth, to all of the distinguished persons here present, ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to be back in Barbados for this formal handing over ceremony of the chair of the Caribbean community. It has truly been an honor and a privilege for the Bahamas and for me personally to have served as its chair. I now pass the mantle on to the distinguished Prime Minister of Barbados. I am certain that the community will be in excellent and capable hands. It is for me to congratulate the new heads of government and heads of state to this forum and join the Secretary General in welcoming them. I pledge to work with all of you for the betterment of our community. Colleague heads, as I recall all that was done for and on behalf of the community over the past 6 months, I hope that my chairmanship is remembered as a time of progress for the region. The pace has been breathless and the range of issues infinite and complex. As a community, though, in the words of the poet, we have miles to go before we sleep. Colleague heads, I wish to apologize for having to do so, but I must leave as soon as I'm able to after this speech. It is an interesting facet of the job that we hold. It's interesting because we can never predict what events will unfold, what new challenge will come before us. Each time we think that the road seems clear, before you know it, there's a bump in the road. And this is what my country, the Bahamas, faces today. It is imperative, therefore, for me to return home as quickly as possible. When you visited Nassau in February, we met in an atmosphere in the Bahamas that the US $3 billion hotel project was nearing completion. Thousands of jobs were riding on that fact. Sadly, events in the last few days have caused us to pause. The developer, without notice, filed for bankruptcy under the laws of the United States. This really shows the complexity of our regional international relations and the international nature of our economies. In our case, it involves US bankruptcy laws, Chinese capital and construction expertise, and Bahamian assets. We are therefore now at a critical time which requires the superintendence of the government. The more general lesson for us all is that no matter how people speak of new models for development in our region, at the end of the day, the entity of last resort, the entity that must step up to the plate when all else fails, is the government. I have never shirked from that fact throughout my public life, and I pledge that in this case my government will see it through. When we tell our international partners that GDP per capita should not be the sole determinant for the question of the economic support that is given to our region, but that they must take into account the vulnerability to economic shocks, the instant example is illustrative. One single large investor can, when it collapses, throw an entire country out of whack. Similarly, as we have seen in our region, one hurricane can wipe out the GDP of an entire country threefold. So we must continue the fight on this issue, and it is certainly the message that the Bahamas will take to Addis Ababa next week and to Paris in December. I want you to know that I wish you all well for this meeting. I wanted to be here to show our country's profound respect for the CARICOM enterprise. I wanted to leave some ideas that I believe require continued attention for the betterment of the region. Colleague heads, chief amongst my concerns and that of the Bahamas is the future of the young people of our region and our country. This most recent event pains me greatly because of the threat to 2,500 jobs for young people just taken onto the workforce, and 3,000 more who anticipated entry into the workforce by the end of the summer. At the conclusion of our 26th intersessional meeting, we committed to pursuing the potential of cultural and creative industries and education. We noted that according to the CARICOM Commission on Youth Development, youth are the backbone of the creative industries in CARICOM, both as consumers and producers, and that youth under 30 years of age constituted as much as 60% of the region's population. Colleague heads, our youth are looking to us to help secure their future and dispel their sense of hopelessness. I need not tell you that we all ought to resolve that we cannot surrender them to crime and criminality. And for the point of emphasis, I repeat it. We cannot surrender our youth to crime and criminality. It is our responsibility to ensure that they get a good education, become part of the formal economies of our country, and become beneficiaries of the practice of social mobility, equity, and fairness. Additionally, in our teaching methodologies, we must embark on programs to focus on raising the educational attainment amongst the bottom 50% in the school system, imploring our educators to find progressive and innovative ways to meet the learning needs of every child. Each of us, all of us, know, and we commit ourselves to every child counts, and not one should be left behind. I have reiterated this point in a number of fora, and that is, if we fail our youth, we do so at our peril. I turn to CARICOM U.S. relations. Colleague heads, within the margins of the CARICOM U.S. summit that was held on the 9th of April 2015 in Jamaica, the President of the United States of America, Barack Obama, shared our vision for youth development, citing, and I quote, "Where spirit, innovation, boldness of the youth could be channeled in a positive direction, countries are successful," end quote. The U.S. President pledged to follow up on a number of issues raised by heads of government relating to trade, finance, and security. Mr. Incoming Chairman, Mr. Secretary General, we must ensure that we follow up from our end as well. Within the margins of the CARICOM U.S. Energy Summit, the community welcomed the announcement of a shift in U.S. policy with respect to supporting concessional development financing for the region in the areas of energy, climate change, and disaster management. G8 and G20 countries, as well as international financial institutions, must be made to understand that financing eligibilities cannot be based on GDP per capita without a review of the unique vulnerabilities of a small island developing state. Blacklisting of the region. Similarly, colleague heads, our advocacy mechanisms will be called into high gear to address the ill-advised classification of Caribbean countries by the European Commission as non-cooperative jurisdictions. This pronouncement came as a shock in view of the fact that a number of CARICOM territories, the Bahamas included, has sought to adhere to every global legislative and regulatory stipulation imposed upon their territories. One of my final duties as chair was to write the European Union to debunk this ill-advised list published by the EU, particularly following a meeting in Europe with them, and they never once raised the matter at all. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, and the Global Forum on Transparency and Exchange of Information for Tax Purposes have challenged this list, saying that the only agreeable assessment of countries' cooperation is made by the Global Forum, and a number of countries identified in the EU exercise are either fully or largely compliant and have committed to automatic exchange of information, sometimes even as early adopters. But the question for us remains as to who will repair the damage done to our financial service industries by the unfair labeling that drives away potential multinational company investors. Who? Colleague heads. We have to garner our collective efforts and fight hard against attempts to portray this region as a high-risk area for investment. And fight hard we must. We must also agitate against the constant moving of the goalposts of standards, thereby offsetting our equilibrium. International conferences, colleague heads. Our countries continue to face the existential threat of climate change, as we have been designated one of the most disaster-prone areas in the world. CARICOM member states face the additional challenge of building their internal resilience in order to mitigate their inherent vulnerabilities. It is our hope that we can work together with our international partners to receive favorable outcomes for our countries at the three imminent conferences of the Third International Conference on Financing for Development, the UN Summit on Post-2015 Development Agenda, and the UN Framework on Climate Change. The international development financing landscape has not been favorable to us in recent times, but it is hoped that with the recent pronouncements of some of our G8 partners, including the US and Japan, on the topic of GDP per capita determinations, this trend will change. Prime Minister Stewart, I have observed with great appreciation Barbados' years of dedicated service on the Caribbean Sea Commission. Your nation has played a very active role in pursuing the Caribbean Sea Initiative, and since 1998 through the UNGA Resolution 63214 towards the sustainable development of the Caribbean Sea for present and future generations at the UN General Assembly. In the process, the Caribbean Sea Commission was established in 2008 to promote the sustainable use of the Caribbean Sea. Every member head here will know and agree that the greatest scourge of our time throughout our territories is youth unemployment. Every member head here present will know that the most effective economic, social, and community program is sustainable employment. When we achieve that, we achieve much, we solve much. There is one part of our CARICOM agenda that I believe holds the greatest promise to address in the short term the problem of youth unemployment. Long after I have ended my stint in the chair, the Bahamas will continue its responsibility for the CARICOM Tourism Desk. And I wish to pledge to members that I intend to carry on my time as head of that desk with much vigor, as I intend to see our tourism responsibilities carried out in the Bahamas through my minister. That vigor will reflect my strong belief that it is through tourism growth, through tourism development, that we have a collective opportunity to begin to address our problem of youth unemployment most rapidly. Mr. Chairman, I crave your indulgence for these last few paragraphs. I have added them because I think it's important and because I will not be here to argue them around the table. I thought I should take the opportunity to speak to you and to the people of Barbados and the people of the region for something that I dearly believe. I know that for some, tourism may be redolent of a part of our history that we would want to keep barricaded. For most of our countries, tourism is the largest earner of foreign exchange. For most of our countries, tourism is the largest employer. For all of our countries, tourism absorbs the broadest range of skills of any economic sector. For all of our countries, tourism is the one sector for which there is no such thing as a jobless recovery. The very nature of tourism requires more people to be hired with increasing numbers of visitors. If unemployment, especially youth unemployment, is the scourge of our times, there appears to be no better economic sector for us to embrace in leading us closer to the promises that we all have made in our lands. I come to this view not only because of the intrinsic benefits that tourism delivers. I also come to this view because I have become convinced that when we look at the world today and at the various global trading blocs that have been formed, when we examine the various initiatives being pursued by CARICOM, it seems to me that the one natural bloc from which our CARICOM nations have much to gain is the God-given bloc accorded to us by having within the Caribbean the most salubrious conditions for existence on our planet. Only us must believe it. Only us must understand that old doxology, one love, one heart. Let's all get together that we heard and feel all right. Only us would know the topography, the beautiful waters. Only us would know the flora, the fauna. And only us would know that the priceless commodity is our people. That gives a definition and a flavor to this being one of God's most precious creations. I am convinced that tourism, the largest part of our collective economies, and in most cases the largest part of our individual economies, deserve much more attention at our regional meetings. Further, I am persuaded that tourism development and all that it entails is the fastest path to reducing unemployment in our region and the fastest path to reducing the debt burdens that terrifies upcoming generations. We are supposed to make each generation better. I fear that we are on the brink of leaving the next generation with a much greater burden to carry if we don't begin to focus on ways to make our natural strengths stronger. I know about and respect the powerful importance of the Caribbean Tourism Organization, to which our ministers of tourism belong. But it has occurred to me that unless CARICOM, that Caribbean body with the largest gathering of government heads of the Caribbean, signals to the CTO that tourism is very important to our collective good, they will take their cues from the rarity of discussions about tourism at our CARICOM meetings as the indicator of our true beliefs. My views are further promoted and prompted by what we see happening with the Cuban embargo on the United States. You will recall that it was CARICOM that spoke longest and loudest about the need for the embargo to be removed. In fact, not long after our most recent meeting as a body in Cuba, the announcement of intent was made by President Obama. Mr. Chairman, I have to tell you that after reading the paper produced by the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association on the likely impact on Caribbean tourism of the reopening of Cuba to travel for United States citizens, I hear their appeal for us to act as a group, to take full advantage of the opportunity to our collective benefit. In their recommendation to establish a Caribbean Basin tourism initiative, I hear their appeal for CARICOM to act in a more concerted manner. That Caribbean Basin Tourism Initiative promises that our citizens can receive benefits from our collective action that we might not be able to achieve for them as individual nations. We need to take action to achieve the reciprocal reduction of taxes on airline tickets between the United States and Canada. The present high taxes have the effect of reducing travel rather than increasing it. I'm not suggesting for one moment that we should remove all taxes from airline tickets immediately and invite the United States, Europe, and South American countries to do the same. What I am asking is that we examine the likely effects of such a move on employment, on total spending, and on tax collection. I do know that a recent PricewaterhouseCoopers report on the effects of United Kingdom imposed APD on airline tickets has been negative for the UK in terms of jobs and tax collection. While we prefer to believe that our lobbying efforts had some effect, it is clear that some of the adjustments that the United Kingdom made to APD is a result of discovering that ticket tax was counterproductive. So with taxes on airline tickets approaching 65% of the total ticket prices in some cases in the Caribbean, there is an argument to be made that the social and economic benefits to be derived from increased volumes of visitors exceed the taxes removed. So, Mr. Chairman, this proposed Caribbean tourism initiative deserves some closer examination for the benefit of all CARICOM countries. In line with the authors of the document, the world's most tourism-dependent region, the Caribbean, should also be seen to be the most tourism competent. We must go further in addressing our air transportation rules, our shipping rules, our regional marketing rules, training and development, etc. I firmly believe that this could be the beginning of some significant steps in that direction, of making things better in the Bahamas and better in the Caribbean. In closing, colleague heads, I really want to take this opportunity to tell you that it has been an honor and a privilege for me to serve the Caribbean community and represent its people in various fora around the world. As I take my leave, I simply implore us to preserve the momentum gained on various developmental targets, and I stand in solidarity with you against any actions that hinder these achievements or negatively impact the territorial sovereignty and integrity of our jurisdictions. I pray that Almighty God continues to bless the governments and peoples of the Caribbean community. I thank you.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, in an adjustment to the original program, we call the Honorable Donaldston Romeo, Premier of Montserrat, to address you.
I recognize protocols that have already been established, but please allow me to recognize our host general, Governor General Sir Elliot Belgrave, also the highly distinguished Chair and Honorable Frundle Stewart, Prime Minister of Barbados, colleagues and friends from across the Caribbean, distinguished guests and friends. Let me express my heartfelt gratitude to be afforded the opportunity to give a few remarks here in one of the highly regarded centers of education, political and economic thinking, and the current home to our CSME Regional Integration Hub, Bridgetown, Barbados. Having taken office as Premier of Montserrat in September 2014, I am honored to join with you, my fellow CARICOM leaders, to this, the 36th regular meeting. I will take this opportunity to tell you very briefly about our continued commitment to the regional integration movement, also provide some reflections and the challenges at home in Montserrat, and also to thank CARICOM and the Secretary General in particular for the careful and steadfast attention paid to the special and differential needs of Montserrat. Being a part of CARICOM affords each member state the opportunity to draw from the wealth of collaborated expertise in every sector. Besides the obvious tangible assets, we all know that when God gives us talents and gifts, along with that comes the means and the opportunity to guarantee our survival. And to the extent that we exercise the will, it will not be just for our survival, but a sustained prosperity. That is why, through the integration of our intellectual resources, professional capacity, and practical experiences, the Caribbean can become increasingly important in the world in the promotion of tourism, economic, ecological, social, moral, and human development. With God's help, we can more than hope that the high ideals to which we aspire will continue to drive the initiatives of the Caribbean single market and economy, and open the opportunities for increased wealth creation in our islands. For us smaller islands, no longer does our individual square mileage or population determine our capabilities. Thanks to technology, the waters which separate each island act as highways facilitating trade, investments, mobilization of brain power, and sharing skills amongst ourselves as needed. The close working relationship among our financial institutions, education systems, cultural festivals, and carnivals and sports can continue to strengthen us as a united force in the world, concretizing the fact that together we can, together we must, and with God's help, we will. Many of you here this afternoon would know that Montserrat, even now after 20 years of volcanic crisis, continues to battle with the challenge of physically, socially, and economically rebuilding its community. The struggles are many and are matched with the determination of a people of resilience who will not abandon their home nor give in to Mother Nature's challenges. Montserrat continues to build houses, roads, develop its natural resources of water, sand, and geothermal energy. And we still intend, with your help and that of our British partners, to establish a new capital in and around Little Bay, Montserrat. Some of our greatest help has come from relationships bearing fruit and trade in agricultural products from Dominica, fuel from Trinidad, plus a range of supplies and human capital to help in all sectors of redevelopment from Jamaica, St. Vincent, Guyana and Belize, Antigua and Barbuda, Barbados, St. Kitts and Nevis. We recall, of course, that the Barbados Defense Force helped us to establish our CARICOM village amongst the first permanent houses in our post-volcanic North Montserrat. And right after the Jamaica Defense Force had pretty much prepared the site for the Cuban houses that were built. Now, regarding the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, We continue our exchanges with Her Majesty's government and are preparing the required legislation to submit to the Legislative Assembly of Montserrat soon. The CARICOM Authority has granted timelines for completion of the process and for the full implementation of the revised treaty. We are very clear that our ascension to the Caribbean Development Fund, which will assist our efforts to integrate, and the original Court of the Caribbean Court of Justice, which safeguards the rules of trade, are necessary pillars that will propel Montserrat forward. We have been assured by the Secretary General of CARICOM, who visited Montserrat in April this year, that all courtesies and assistance will be granted as needed to help Montserrat advance as a founding member of CARICOM with the current new revised arrangements of our regional integration movement. As a number of studies has shown, it is in the strategic interest of both Montserrat and CARICOM that we remain inclusive, particularly in the area of natural resources, the environment, and climate change. My colleagues, I join in the spirit of CARICOM unity as a newcomer to this stage, but with one clear advantage. I was born and nourished by regional integration, by the movement where my father, an Antiguan policeman, serving in the Leeward Island Police Force, was transferred to Montserrat with a suitcase and a motorcycle, moved into the police station next to where my mother lived. Soon, two became one, and produced 4 children, of which I am the third. So the regional integration movement has tremendous meaning and potential for me. The regional integration movement has great meaning and potential for all of our people to not only survive, but to succeed and prosper in this ever-changing world. Distinguished guests, I thank you.
And now we shall sing Renan Hackett, reigning junior calypso monarch in Barbados, a talented 12-year-old Combermere student actively involved in music, sports, and athletics. His musical career started when he was 8 years of age. In 2011, he won the National Parish Talent Zonal Show and represented his parish at the Spirit of the Nation show. Talented young man who has already performed for regional heads of government and is glad for the opportunity to do it again. Ladies and gentlemen, to perform Caribbean Unity, please welcome Renan Hackett. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You'll feel its warmth, its gentle touch, the everlasting hope, holding me so much. A created world, a picture so true, a paradise.
Joining the Caribbean in musical matrimony, young Renan Hackett. And now, the Honorable Dr. Timothy Harris, Prime Minister of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, to come to the microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, colleagues, heads of government, Governor General of Barbados. I crave your indulgence, of course, to adopt the protocol so ably set before me. It is indeed a great pleasure and an honor for me to address this distinguished gathering on behalf of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. A strong spirit of fraternity and kingship has been fostered among Caribbean leadership for more than 4 decades, especially among the enthusiastic group of officials, technocrats, experts, and academics who frequent our CARICOM summits and meetings. I commend the indefatigable spirits of those who have labored selflessly over time in the interests of the regional integration program. St. Kitts and Nevis, of course, has never wavered in its commitment to the broader Caribbean vision of a people working together for common good. Our leaders, from our first national hero, the Right Excellent Robert Bratcher, his successors, heads of government, Premiers the Honorable Paul Southwell, the Honorable Limor, and the Right Honorable Sir Kennedy Simmons, our first Prime Minister, and the Right Honorable Denzel Douglas, all played their constructive roles in effecting reforms to facilitate a truly integrated CARICOM region. Sir Robert Bratcher gave up elective political office in St. Kitts and Nevis to become the first Minister of Finance of the ill-fated West Indian Federation. St. Kitts and Nevis's support for regional integration secured for it a place in the annals of history with the Treaty of Bastia, establishing the OECS, and the revised Treaty of Bastia, establishing the OECS Union. We are also host country of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, the Eastern Caribbean Stock Exchange, and the Eastern Caribbean Home Mortgage Bank. I come to leadership here, wedded by history, by experience, lived realities, and a conviction to the vision that the Caribbean will be at its best when we work together as one. One people, one destiny. Since assuming my role, I have met and interacted with many of my colleagues, heads of government, and other officials at several regional and multilateral fora. I am always struck by the camaraderie and solidarity that so naturally characterize all our engagements, which always bring to mind the wisdom enshrined in Psalms 133 at verse 1. Oh, how good and pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. I have chosen to organize my address around this central principle, which is both the key that unveils the secret to our progress and success as a union of small, vulnerable, and open island economies and coastal states, despite seemingly insurmountable odds, as well as the defining compulsion and imperative for our continued survival in a world of rapid upheaval and transformation. From this vantage point, we see that Caribbean unity is not merely pleasant in terms of the love, the peace, and harmony that flow among us, that moisten the heart and give us a sense of community, of identity and commonality of interest, but it's also sensible, profitable, and necessary that we pursue and consolidate it in our self-interest. On the 16th of February 2015, I had the privilege of leading a tripartite movement called Team Unity to Victory in the federal elections that took place in St. Kitts and Nevis. The overwhelming wave of support that transported our team to the helm of leadership in our beloved Twin Island paradise of St. Kitts and Nevis, in our view, representing a resounding mandate for a new direction to be set and established that would usher our people to a new heights of prosperity, success, and well-being. For too long, rampant political tribalism had divided our nation, stifled the nascent potential and promise of our young people, and stymied our prospects for inclusive and sustainable job-rich growth and development. For the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, the time for change had come, and the clarion call for unity was sent forth as a call to action for the new leadership to address perennial domestic challenges as they relate to reducing the cost of living, attacking unemployment, persistent poverty, citizen security, low growth, and a high national debt. The time had come for a unified approach to democracy and development that had eluded the people of St. Kitts and Nevis for too long. Likewise, ladies and gentlemen of the Caribbean community, we are living in a historical conjuncture whereby regional unity, as a vital strategy for building economic resilience, driving growth, and fostering inclusive and comprehensive social development for each nation, is even more an imperative today than it was in yesteryear. Today, the member states of the community are at the front lines of some of the most serious global problems, generally not of our own making, and whose impacts bear on us disproportionately, posing a threat to our way of life, our welfare, and even our own existence. Such challenges include scarce access to concessionary sources of financing, unsustainable debt levels, additional demands and compliance costs associated with global efforts to combat terrorism, organized crime, and tax evasion. Of course, the list goes on and on. As was evident in 1973, when the Caribbean community was established, the people of our community recognized then, as they do now, the value of being together as small states in a competitive and asymmetrical world that sought and continues to seek to condemn countries like ours to a structural condition of dependence, irrelevance, and limited fiscal space. Their clamor for unity was heard resoundingly with rising crescendo in the consultative processes that resulted in the report of the West Indian Commission way back in 1993, the Grandance Declaration that created eventually the single market and economy of 2011, and of recent vintage, the CARICOM Strategic Plan 2015 to 2019. At each historic juncture in the ongoing quest for regional integration, the people of our community have declared resolutely that after more than 400 years of being acted upon, it is time for us to act for ourselves and to do for ourselves what no one else can, will, or should do for us. Let our ingenuity, our industry, and unity lead us to a new level of democracy and development for all our people. The year 2015, you have heard, is a seminal year during which several major international meetings will be held to bring all elements of our global society into a collective conversation about how we can work together to respond to the pressing issues of our day and secure global compacts as they relate to the most salient and urgent issues on the international agenda. Such meetings, of course, include the United Nations Post-2015 Development Agenda, the Third International Conference on Financing for Development, and the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change Conference. As such, this year provides an ideal opportunity for the Caribbean community to leverage the full weight of its collective voice and vote towards ensuring its effective and meaningful participation in these negotiations, asserting and inserting a small state perspective and protecting the interests of the people of our community. This year provides a rare moment in history to engender a paradigm shift that would allow the independent nations of the region to finally break free from systems, agendas, and philosophies that were put in place long before we were able to have a voice in the world community of nations. It is certainly time for us to stop fighting against our own. And it is a matter of disappointment for us that we have failed to consolidate around a single candidate for top posts at the OAS and the Commonwealth Secretary General. We must return to the better days when leaders opted for unity instead of division, which vitiates against the ascendancy of the best among us. The extent to which the Caribbean community will be successful in securing vibrant societies and building resilient economies will turn on how successful we are with carrying the flag of unity forward. The strength of our resolve will turn on the strength and involvement of our citizens in carrying the integration process forward. I am therefore heartened at recent advances towards reforming the governance architecture of the Caribbean community and democratizing the decision-making process through the operationalization of the CARICOM Permanent Committee of Ambassadors. It is hoped that our ambassadors will strengthen the consultative process with national constituencies in order to have the views of the people reflected in the agenda setting and policy formulations of the regional agenda. In this regard, I want to commend the government of Antigua and Barbuda for successfully hosting such consultation recently. This new development, along with the proposed re-establishment of the Assembly of Caribbean Community Parliamentarians, will finally create a system which gives central place to the sovereignty of the people through the inclusion of the CARICOM body politic and social partners. There is no other time for which regional unity and solidarity are more important than with the current humanitarian and human rights crisis affecting our Haitian brethren and the beleaguered Dominicans of Haitian descent, documented or not, born and living in the Dominican Republic. We in St. Kitts and Nevis share the pain and anguish of the unfortunate Dominicans of Haitian descent, and we stand with them in opposition to the present assault to their human rights and dignity caused by the various covert and overt actions taken by the government of the Dominican Republic, seemingly intent and forcing them to either self-deport or directly expel them from the land of their birth to a land which they have neither family nor language links. I therefore call on the Dominican Republic authorities to cease and desist with any plan that would lead to the expulsion of Dominicans of Haitian descent and render them stateless. Consideration should also be given to extend the deadline for the registration of undocumented immigrants to allow time for the appropriate solution to be devised in keeping with international principles and best practices. In closing, I wish to assure you of my government's deep commitment to carry the CARICOM integration process forward, and we make this commitment with the firm resolve to place the issues squarely on the table as we see them. I am confident that this summit will redound to an exercise in the franchise of Caribbean ingenuity, industry, entrepreneurship, hope, and aspiration in our quest to engender vibrant societies and resilient economies. I therefore leave you with the words of His Excellency Mr. Samuel Weymouth Tapley Seton, QC, Acting Governor General of St. Kitts and Nevis, who said in his throne speech delivered on the 14th May 2015, and I quote, because I believe the lines are applicable region-wide: "A prosperous nation has a strong and vibrant economy where people who want to find a good-paying job can find a good-paying job, where someone with an idea can get financing to start a business, where industry, small and large, are striving, and where access to technology can level the playing field. We must put our people to work. We must become energy efficient. We must create the environment where government can be a catalyst for job creation in the private sector through innovation, regulatory processes, technology, and incentives," end of quote. I therefore wish to posit to my colleagues that if we can manage to approach the regional agenda with such simple and achievable goals and pursue them with vigor and unity, this would represent a quantum leap forward for the people of our community in our 1,000-mile journey and hasten a golden age of prosperity and well-being in the Caribbean region. So long live Caribbean unity, long live CARICOM. May God bless us all.
Next, we welcome to the microphone His Excellency Brigadier David Granger, President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana.
Thank you, Your Excellency, the Governor General of Barbados, the Right Honorable Frondel Stewart, Prime Minister of Barbados and Chairman of the Conference, colleagues, heads of state and government of the community, His Excellency Varela Rodriguez, President of the Republic of Panama, His Excellency Ban Ki-moon, Secretary General of the United Nations, His Excellency Luis Almagro, Secretary General of the Organization of American States, His Excellency Kamalesh Sharma, Secretary General of the Commonwealth, His Excellency Erwin LaRocque, Secretary General of the Caribbean Community, His Excellency Patrick Gomes, Secretary General of the African, Caribbean, and Pacific Group, members of the Diplomatic Corps, special invitees, distinguished guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to join fellow heads of government here in beautiful Barbados at this 36th regular meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of the Caribbean Community. We wish to record our gratitude to our host, Prime Minister Frondel Stewart, to the government and to the friendly people of this island for the gracious welcome extended to our delegation and for the excellent arrangements made for this conference. I'm happy to address this conference this evening just 7 weeks into my tenure as President of Guyana following the election on the 11th of May. We publicly applaud the valued contribution made by the various electoral missions, including the CARICOM Electoral Observer Mission, to validating the democratic process of our country. The election results were not a victory. They were an opportunity to establish a government of national unity and to create the inclusionary democracy which our national constitution prescribes. We share the passion for the twin virtues of national independence and regional integration, which inspired our founding fathers to embark on a path that has brought us here today. That is the path that led to the origins of the Caribbean community 50 years ago. Those virtues and values are as relevant now as they were then. They will continue to guide us for generations to come. I've been informed by my friend and brother, Prime Minister Frandel Stewart, that this is where it started, here in Bridgetown. 50 years ago, on the 4th of July, 1965, Antigua's Very Bird, Barbados's Errol Barrow, and Guyana's Forbes Burnham, the three busy bees, met here in Bridgetown. Their intuition and their initiative led 5 months later to Dickinson Bay, which led eventually to the establishment of the Caribbean Free Trade Association, which in turn led to Chaguaramas and the creation of the Caribbean community on the 4th of July, 1973. The rest is history. None of the three countries that contributed to the inception of this great movement was as yet independent in July 1965. But the three premiers knew the value of independence. None belonged to a formal federation, but the three premiers knew the need for integration. Here we are today, their heirs and successors. We have a mandate, a mission to preserve that independence and to protect that integration against the danger of domination and disintegration. We are committed to continue the process of actualizing the aspirations of our visionary founders, to bring real independence and real integration, real happiness to our peoples. We are committed to ensure that every effort is made to eradicate inequality and poverty. We will not be able to attain the level of development needed to lift our people out of poverty, however, unless we are able to exploit our bountiful natural resources and employ the human talents of our resourceful people. The task facing the community today is to reaffirm its collective support for the principles enshrined in international law for safeguarding our territorial integrity and sovereignty and our national independence, and in our charters and agreements for deepening the integration of our community. Guyana, even as it approaches the 50th anniversary of its independence next year, hand in hand with its sister Barbados, is still carrying a monkey on its back. That monkey is the unbearable burden of an oppressive and obnoxious claim on our land and sea space. CARICOM has been a source of solace and steadfast support for Guyana's territorial integrity and sovereignty over the years. We never needed that support more than now. Guyana has borne the brunt of having funding for a major hydroelectric project blocked, of having investors intimidated, of having its citizens in border areas harassed, and of having petroleum exploration vessels expelled and seized by gunboats. Guyana's border with Venezuela was fixed 116 years ago. It was determined, it was defined, it was delineated, it was demarcated by international arbitration. Maps were drawn, atlases were adjusted, border markers were cast in stone, any state that systematically and cynically and sedulously seeks to repudiate the solemn international agreement and to undermine the security and sovereignty of another state must be condemned. The Republic of Venezuela over the past 50 years, alas, has become regressive and even more aggressive. That country continues to threaten the development of Guyana, a CARICOM member state, both on land and at sea. Venezuela, mindful of its superior wealth and military naval strength, but unmindful of the plight of the poor people of one of the world's smallest and least populated states, has again resorted to intimidation and the threat of the use of force. Guyana seeks the support of its sister states in the Caribbean community. We clamor for the succor of the Commonwealth. We yearn for the security of the United Nations and the shelter of international law to bring a peaceful end to Venezuela's rejection of the validity of a boundary which has been defined as a full, perfect, and final settlement, and which all parties at that time vowed to accept and respect for all time. Naval superiority cannot be allowed to supplant the supremacy of the law. Gunboat diplomacy has no place in the 21st century and must be condemned wherever it occurs. Guyana assures the representatives of the international community assembled here today of its adherence to international law. We assure the Secretary General of the United Nations. We assure the Secretary General of the Commonwealth. We assure the Secretary General of the Organization of American States. And we assure the Secretary General of the Caribbean Community that Guyana today and for all time will pursue the principles of mutual respect for each other's territorial integrity and sovereignty, mutual non-aggression, mutual non-interference in each other's internal affairs, and mutual cooperation for peaceful coexistence between neighbors and among states. Guyana calls on the Caribbean to condemn in the strongest terms any state that seeks to undermine these sacred principles. CARICOM is a rich storehouse of shared experiences in our struggle for independence and integration. Without the cooperation of our CARICOM member states, we risk being miniaturized and marginalized, and our efforts to improve our economies could be trivialized. We might be a community of small states, but we deserve and demand to be treated as equals among the nations of the world. Let us not be afraid to re-engage the rest of the hemisphere as a natural family, as natural allies, and as a force for peace and international law. CARICOM member states have assembled here today, conscious of the reality that we are part of the international community that is characterized by unequal relations of power and exchange. We are powerless as individual states to alter these asymmetric relations, but we are powerful as a community of sovereign states, speaking with a united voice to adopt an attitude and to gain amplitude in order to influence the global agenda and resolve the many issues that confront small states. We've already demonstrated the capacity to collaborate to confront some of the most challenging transnational threats. These threats have demanded that we increasingly seek regional rather than purely national responses. They form the basis of regional cooperation. Transnational threats, formidable as they are, pale in significance to a much more potential threat, the threat to our territory, the very land and sea space on which we rely for our daily existence. Our exclusive economic zones are integral to our national territory. They're essential to our survival because we depend on these waters for our economic sustenance, for travel, for trade, for tourism, for fishing, and for petroleum exploitation. Our exclusive economic zones are rich in resources. These zones represent potentially lucrative economic frontiers. Many of the exclusive economic zones of our member states are interlocked. More importantly, some have not been demarcated. This absence of maritime demarcation represents a possible source of conflict within the community. It can also be exploited by forces external to the community. We were forewarned about this danger. The President of Mexico, Vicente Fox, at that time, speaking to the 22nd meeting of the Conference of the Heads of Government of the Caribbean Community in the Bahamas in 2001, then noted that, I quote, more than half of the maritime borderlines, which involve at least 24 pairs of states with adjacent facing coastlines, have yet to be agreed on. End of quote. Our maritime zones are of economic and strategic importance, not just for us, but for others who seek to assert their superiority. These waters are our common patrimony. They are ours to possess, ours to protect, ours to bequeath to posterity. We must remove any potential sources of conflict among our member states by ensuring the process of maritime delimitation in accordance with international law of the sea. We must be prepared also to exercise absolute sovereignty over our maritime waters and resources. We must protect these resources from being invaded and annexed. We must pursue the principle of collective security, which provides that the threat to any of our members represents a threat to the entire community. Guyana faces such a threat. Decree number 1787, promulgated by the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, was timed to coincide with Guyana's Independence Day on the 26th of May this year, and it was the actual day of my inauguration as president of my country. The decree sticks in my throat like a bone. The decree lays claim to much of the coastline and most of the exclusive economic zone of Guyana. This decree has dire implications for the entire region, but most particularly the eastern tier of states, Barbados, Grenada, Guyana, Suriname, and Trinidad and Tobago. We consider the decree by Venezuela as an act of aggression against Guyana's sovereignty. It is an assault on our right to access and to develop our maritime resources. We ask this conference to affirm its solidarity with Guyana and to repudiate this obnoxious decree. Guyana has always been in the forefront of regional integration, and it has stayed faithful and steadfast for 50 years, from CARIFTA to CARICOM. Guyana remains steadfast in its commitment to this great regional project. Guyana will not falter in its duty to CARICOM. Guyana will play its part, both inside and outside of this conference, to support the regional integration process. Guyana will work with its sister states to pursue the mission of deepening and strengthening the integration process. We owe it to our peoples. We owe it to each other. We owe it to posterity. We owe it to the Caribbean, our natural home. It is my sincere hope that the discussions which will follow this magnificent opening ceremony will be a manifestation of our faith in integration and an indication of the fact that the best days for the region are yet ahead. This is an auspicious year, an auspicious time, and an auspicious place to renew our commitment to the ideals of our founding fathers. This is the occasion, the Bridgetown moment, to remind ourselves of CARICOM's vision, of its founding principles that gave our people the fruits of independence and integration, fruits that they deserve to enjoy. I thank you.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, we take the opportunity to acknowledge the presence of Senor Luis Almagro Lernes, Secretary General of the Organization of American States, among our special guests. Thank you. Our next speaker is His Excellency Desi Bouterse, President of the Republic of Suriname. He's not here? I'm sorry. We move on then to His Excellency Ban Ki-moon, Secretary General of the United Nations.
Your Excellency, Sir Elliot Belgrave, Governor General of Barbados, Your Excellency, the Right Honorable Frandel Stewart, Prime Minister of Barbados and incoming Chair of CARICOM, Your Excellency, the Right Honorable Perry Christie, Prime Minister of Bahamas and outgoing Chair of CARICOM, Excellencies, Heads of State and Government of CARICOM, Your Excellency Erwin Larocque, Secretary General of CARICOM, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor and pleasure for me to be with you in this beautiful bridge town. I was proud to be the first UN Secretary General to attend the CARICOM summit. I'm now honored, most honored, to attend a second summit meeting again. I thank the CARICOM, the Caribbean community for your invitation and the government and people of Barbados for your hospitality. Thank you for your basin. Excellencies, we are living in a world of great uncertainty and growing inequality. Here in this region, I know young people are worried about jobs. Families are worried about security and safety in their communities. People are worried about their future. In times like this, we need to be reminded of our basic values. I strongly believe one of the fundamental values of the United Nations is to safeguard the interests of the smallest and most vulnerable. We must always act for the shared interests of all humankind and leave no one behind. That commitment must animate all we do, particularly in this crucial year of action, 2015, a year that will shape development in your region and our world for years to come. That action begins in less than 2 weeks in Addis Ababa, when leaders will meet to agree on a framework for financing for development. It is encouraging that the concerns of small island developing states have been reflected in the discussions, including in critical areas such as debt, trade, technology, and official development assistance. In September in New York, I expect world leaders will agree on a set of sustainable development agenda with a set of sustainable development goals, SDGs, to guide development policy for the next 15 years. I thank CARICOM leaders for actively contributing to this debate and for emphasizing the special circumstance and unique vulnerabilities of the seeds. In December in Paris, governments have pledged to adopt a new, meaningful, universal climate change agreement. Even though you in the Caribbean region are among the smallest contributors to climate change, you are among the strongest leaders in the responding to the challenge. Your moral authority on these vital issues carries enormous weight in the international arena. And your leadership on renewable energy and catastrophe risk insurance provides a powerful example for others to follow. Access to finance is critical, and I have worked hard to capitalize and operationalize the Green Climate Fund, and I will continue to work with the G7 leadership and the COP presidencies of France and Peru to ensure priority is placed on the needs of seeds and least developed countries. Excellencies, the Caribbean is home to ideas, examples, and solutions. Your views and experiences shape global policy. We have seen it time and again. You put the challenge of non-communicable diseases on the global agenda. You have made enormous progress in the battle against HIV/AIDS, including mother-to-child transmission. You have many successes in achieving the Millennium Development Goals. You have also been an important moral voice. I thank you for your leadership in honoring the victims of slavery and the transatlantic slave trade. I was proud to join in the inauguration of the permanent memorial at UN headquarters earlier this year. The region is home to Ambassador John Ash, who served so ably as President of the United Nations General Assembly last year. And of course, Barbados hosted the first international conference on small island developing states 2 decades ago. Now, as we look ahead, I ask 3 things from you. First, I'm very pleased to see you today, but I want this to become a habit. I hope to see you at least 3 more times this year. First, please come to Addis Ababa for the Financing for Development Conference. Second, please come to New York as we finalize the post-2015 development agenda. Third, please come to Paris Climate Change Summit meeting. We need your full engagement at the highest political level. Take ownership of these processes. Tell your negotiators to keep ambition high. These efforts will succeed or fail short on your watch. Help us mark a turning point towards transformation. Second, let us boost our work together on vision-specific challenges. The implementation of the Samoa Pathway has become central in UN planning and investment. We stand ready to support your efforts to strengthen your crime and security strategy. Since you are also on the front lines of humanitarian consequences of our changing world, I urge your perspectives and full support for the process leading to the first ever World Humanitarian Summit, which will be held in Istanbul in May next year. Let me also add that within the past year, I have had the privilege of visiting both Haiti and the Dominican Republic. I am pleased that Haiti is now preparing for general elections. I also share concerns about citizenship issues on the island of Hispaniola. I have discussed this with President of the Dominican Republic and trust there will be further progress in resolving this matter, protecting the rights of affected persons and preventing the deprivation of nationality. This is a matter of human rights and human dignity. Third and finally, I ask you to continue to be voices for vulnerable, not just in this region, but for the globe. I may not receive top marks in a geography course for saying this, but in today's interdependent world, no country is an island. We need partnership and solidarity to achieve our goals in this big year for humanity. Excellencies, I take great inspiration from your region's spirit of working together. When it comes to global challenge, you have shown in many ways how it pays to play on the same team. Looking forward, let us take inspiration from some of the West Indies' greatest examples of that philosophy. People like Brian Lara, Sir Frank Worrell, and Sir Garfield Sobers. Let us take the big agenda before us and hit it for 6. Thank you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, incoming chairman of the Conference of Heads of Government of CARICOM, the Right Honorable Frondell Stewart, Prime Minister of Barbados.
Your Excellency, colleague heads of state and government, heads of delegations, Chief Justice of Barbados, Secretary General of CARICOM, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. 50 years ago, in response to a letter from Errol Barrow, received on the 27th day of June 1965, the then Premier of Guyana, Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham, came to Barbados on the 4th day of July 1965 and discussed with Mr. Barrow the formation of a Caribbean Free Trade Association. Barrow and Burnham subsequently interested the then head of government in Antigua, Vere Cornwall Byrd, in their project, and at Dickinson Bay in Antigua, the agreement establishing CARIFTA was signed. Later in October 1967, at a conference held here in Barbados, all of the other English-speaking countries of the Caribbean committed themselves to the association, and CARIFTA became a flourishing reality. It is especially appropriate, therefore, that exactly 50 years after that famous meeting in the Cabinet Room here in Barbados between Errol Barrow and Forbes Burnham, Barbados should be hosting the 36th regular meeting of the heads of government of the Caribbean community. I am pleased, therefore, to welcome all of my colleague heads of government, heads of delegations, and indeed all delegates to Barbados. It is my especial pleasure to welcome to their first regular meeting as heads of government the distinguished President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Brigadier David Granger, the distinguished Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris, and the distinguished Premier of Montserrat, the Honorable Donaldson Romeo. The presence of these three distinguished gentlemen, along with the return to office of the distinguished Prime Minister of Dominica, the Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit, and more recently, the distinguished President of Suriname, Desi Bouterse, is proof positive that the democratic machinery in our CARICOM region is not only well-oiled, but also is performing optimally. We look forward, of course, to the enrichment of our deliberations which will result from the interventions of our new heads of government from whom you have heard earlier this evening. I reserve a very special welcome this evening for the distinguished Secretary General of the United Nations, His Excellency Mr. Ban Ki-moon, who honors Barbados and this conference with his visit as one of our special guests. His speech here this evening is evidence at once eloquent and moving of his known commitment to and passion for the cause of developing states in general and of small island developing states in particular. I hope that the Secretary General will enjoy to the full his all too brief but action-packed stay here in Barbados. It is my special pleasure also to welcome to this opening ceremony the distinguished Secretary General of the Commonwealth, His Excellency Mr. Kamala Sharma. His term of office comes to an end this coming November. For the full duration of his incumbency, he both embodied and promoted the values of the Commonwealth, and now leaves it an institution of which we can all, with justification, continue to feel proud. Tomorrow, we will also welcome to Barbados and to the conference as a special guest the distinguished President of Panama, His Excellency Senor Juan Carlos Varela Rodriguez. He will be with us here from July 3rd to 4th. The Republic of Panama continues to be interested in deepening its relationship with our Caribbean community, and it is both happy and fortuitous that President Varela should be attending this 36th regular conference here in Barbados. For about 60,000 of this country's citizens left these shores to contribute directly and indirectly to the construction of the Panama Canal. Panama money contributed much to the stability and the burgeoning development of some of our Caribbean states in the first half of the last century. As CARICOM countries and those of Central and South America become more deeply integrated, the relationship with Panama will become increasingly important. I look forward to his interaction with us. I hope, of course, that all of our visitors will make some time to savor the miscellany of culinary and cultural delights always on offer here in Barbados. The entire nation welcomes you all. Mr. Chairman, I indicated earlier that we meet on the occasion of the 50th anniversary of the decision of two countries to establish CARIFTA. At the time of taking that decision, there was no Caribbean Development Bank, no Caribbean Tourism Organization, no Caribbean Meteorological Institute, no Caribbean Agricultural Research and Development Institute, no Caribbean Examinations Council, no Caribbean Festival of Creative Arts, which we celebrate once again, this time in our sister member state, Haiti, in August this year, no Caribbean Court of Justice, no Caribbean Public Health Agency, no Council of Legal Education, and certainly there was no Caribbean Community and Common Market. There were no CARIFTA games to provide some of the finest printers the world has yet seen. All of these institutions and many others have been the result of the renewed efforts of Barrow, Burnham, and Byrd in the first instance. Of course, the other countries, seeing the wisdom of these efforts, joined in the thrust to bring the people of the Caribbean closer together after the failure of the federal experiment in 1962. Just about 5 years after the establishment of CARIFTA, the hindsight, the insight, and the foresight of four leaders in our region, Dr. Eric Eustace Williams, Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham, Michael Norman Manley, and Errol Walton Barrow, resulted in their meeting at Chaguaramas in October 1972 and deciding that Cuba's isolation in this region should come to an end. In so doing, it now emerges they anticipated the United States of America by 43 years. 1 year later, these same four leaders met again at Chaguaramas and signed the treaty establishing the Caribbean Community, thereby moving the region from the limited and limiting concept of a free trade area to the broader and deeper concept of regional integration. 1989, CARICOM leaders meeting at Granance in Grenada took the further step of agreeing to the creation of a single market and a single economy as a means of deepening the regional integration movement contemplated by our founding fathers. CSME was not intended to uproot and replace the goal of regional integration, but was yet another means by which that goal could be facilitated and achieved. Regional integration is still the aim of our endeavors. A single market and economy is for sure another effective means to the realization of that aim. With every passing week, with every passing month, with every passing year, indeed with every passing day, we try by the things we say and by the things we do to make our integration movement more perfect. There will always be things that we have not yet done, and there will always be things that we have already done, but that we can do better. There will never come a time, however, when we will be able to fold our arms and proclaim, now the laborer's task is o'er. We have a perfect integration movement. Yet, we cannot and should not relax pursuing the goal of trying to make our integration movement a perfect one. A man's reach should always exceed his grasp, or what's a heaven for, as the poet Robert Browning so discerningly observed. It helps the regional cause none, therefore, when across the region, a few merchants of the ritualistic and a few purveyors of despair and despondency seem to derive less pleasure from celebrating our accomplishments than they do from highlighting what we have not yet been able to achieve. The pursuit of that unwelcome and unhelpful course can only have the effect of imbuing our people with a sense of their own inadequacy and of weakening their enthusiasm to aspire, to aim, and to achieve at a time when they have so much to offer, and indeed when so much remains to be done. Remarkably, heads of government of the Caribbean Community did not meet in 1975, 1976, 1977, 1978, 1979, 1980, or 1981, but the regional integration movement survived. Today, when heads of government are meeting twice annually, once in regular conference during the first week of July, and once in intercessional, usually during the month of February, and making concrete decisions, cynics still unabashedly publish obituary notices in respect of the regional integration project. As leaders for the time being of our respective countries, we must accept the solemn responsibility which devolves on our shoulders to raise the gaze of our people to new and hitherto unimagined regional horizons. Nowhere is this more necessary than in the area of food security. For how much longer are we going to repeat that between the lands of Guyana, of Belize, and now also of Suriname, we have the veritable breadbasket of the Caribbean? Has the time not come? Is the hour not upon us when we must, in a structured manner, mobilize the idle hands in our region around the idle lands in our region and deal systematically with the food security issues we have been facing. If our pallets are being held on mortgage by producers of food outside of this region, are we still justified in thinking ourselves genuinely independent? We meet at a time when the region continues to feel the effects of the worst crisis the Western world has faced since the Second World War, and perhaps the most sustained crisis in about 100 years. At the best of times, our countries have been fiscally fragile, and this crisis has rather cruelly exposed how vulnerable we are to exogenous shocks. Our tourism and financial services sectors have been hard hit, with consequences for our revenues, our debt to GDP ratios, and the dangerous debt overhang that results from severe fiscal imbalances. All of this has had implications for employment levels, particularly among the youth in our respective countries. Of particular concern to us in recent times, however, has been the behavior of some of our foreign-owned commercial banks, which have worn seemingly permanent smiles on their faces when patriating dizzying profits from our countries during times of economic and financial plenty, but which now seem unwilling to hold hands and walk with us during this period of economic and financial challenge. The conduct which we have been witnessing is troublingly reminiscent of a past era when countries in this region were seen just as a collection of outposts useful only for the extraction of mineral and agricultural wealth by richer and more powerful countries, and useful too for the consumption of the finished products manufactured in those countries. In those days, there was no need for a special vocabulary to describe the movement of wealth from this region to the North Atlantic. In our time, however, we have witnessed the invention of a whole new vocabulary to describe any seeming movement of wealth from the North Atlantic to our countries. If this is what globalization means, the late Professor Rex Nettleford may well have been right when he said that globalization is just a new name for an old obscenity. Is it any wonder then that the issue of reparations and reparatory justice continues to be a hot agenda item for us here in this region? Yet, as a region, we cannot afford to be daunted by any of these happenings. We must keep our perspective, think and work through our economic and financial challenges, and continue to run with patience the race that is set before us. To this challenge, I think that as a region, we are more than equal. The talent pool in the CARICOM region is as rich as that which can be found in any other region in the world. We've demonstrated this time and time again in the area of culture, sport, literature, the arts, in the world of academia, and in the way we have managed the development of our societies and economies, even in the face of formidable challenges. The vibrant societies in this region have put us in the favorable position of being able to undertake with confidence the task of creating resilient economies for the benefit of all of our people. The Caribbean is a civilization which has always had much to share with the rest of the world. As we all know by now, small size has never determined the capacity of a people to nudge history in any particular direction. During the course of my chairmanship over the next 6 months, A number of meetings important to the future of our region are scheduled to take place. There will be the Third International Conference on Financing for Development to be held in Addis Ababa later this month. The Special UN Conference on the Post-2015 Agenda to be held in New York at a time when the United Nations will be celebrating its 70th anniversary in September. The Commonwealth Heads of Government Conference in Malta in November, where, among other things, a new Secretary General is to be chosen. And critically, the final conference of the parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change in Paris in December, at which it is hoped that a universally binding agreement can be reached. In all of these fora, CARICOM's mature, balanced, and constructive voice will have to be raised and heard in the promotion and defense of the worthy cause of small island developing states. Barbados celebrates the 50 years of sacrifice and hard work towards the integration of our region and honors all our forebears who have invested so much of their time and energy in helping to build what we have today. We cannot afford to let them down. It is in that understanding that we meet in the 36th regular conference of the heads of government of the Caribbean community to tackle the wide range of issues that appear on our agenda. Issues whose rationale is not only the pursuit and achievement of sustainable development for our respective countries, but also the accelerated integration of the people and the economies of our Caribbean region. In the face of all of the robust debate, energetic discussion, and in some cases, unavoidable disagreement that will necessarily characterize our deliberations, we remember with respect the immortal words of the late Dr. Eric Eustace Williams on the occasion of the signing of the Treaty of Chaguaramas on the 4th day of July 1973. Words to be studied, not for avoidance, but for enlightenment and emulation. I quote, "All our strength is in our union. All our danger is in discord," unquote. By this timely reminder, let us all be guided as we commence our deliberations at this 36th regular conference of heads of government of the Caribbean community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prime Minister of Barbados and incoming chairman of the Conference of Heads of Government of CARICOM. Now, ladies and gentlemen, from the colorful cultural landscape of Barbados, two pieces before we move our celebration this evening to another part of the compound. First of all, the Landship Dance featuring Pineland's Creative Workshop.
Good morning, children. And how are you this morning? I am quite fine. This morning we're going to be speaking about the landship. Do anybody know anything about the landship? No? No? You don't know anything at all about the landship? No. Let me hear you, son. down, boy. The land shape has nothing to do with no Jones and Walker. The land shape is a traditional dance of Barbados. It mimics the actions of a ship at sea. So this morning, I'm going to give you some demonstrations, and you will follow me. Up, up, up. Turn around. The first movement we're going to look at. All right, watch me. Eyes over the side. We're going to test those waters. Let me see you test those waters. Not bad at all. Our next movement, we're going to row out to sea. Let me see you row out to sea. You all are fast learners. Our final movement, we're going to haul the anchor. All right. Hold the anchor quick. Very good. The bell goes. When they come back the next time, we're going to continue from where we left off, okay? So y'all continue to have a fun day. Very well.
Where were you guys when I was looking for you? When I was learning the what? Oh, when I mean that thing that them is do at Pinelands Creative Workshop? I know some of that land shape thing. I can show when what I know, and when I show me what I know. All right? Engines roll. Sailors march. Knees up, sailors. Upward march. Knees up. Attention, sailor march. Sailors, test those waters. Bend your back, sailor. Bend your back. Hands in the air. Hands on your hips. Hands in the air. Hands on your hips. Attention. Roll. Come on, sailor. Move those arms. Roll those. Sailors, pull those anchors. Double time. Hold the anchor. Bring it up, sailor. Come on, bring it up. Attention, move out. Attention. Engine school now. Who's going to show me what they learned today? Me, ma'am. Fallen policeman. Fallen policeman, you want to take over this ship. Engines roll. Roll call, sailors. Chest up, chin up. Nurses. Yes, ma'am. Maids. Policeman. Ma'am. Junior officer. Junior officer. Falling. What is this? Wait a minute. Somebody is missing from this ship. Where is that junior officer? Where were you? Fall into this ship. Come on. All right there. Junior officer. Engines roll. Sailors move on. Aye. these seas. They're rough sailors, rough seas. Move it, come on. Oh, these seas are rough. Come on, sailor. Row, row, sailors. Row. Come on, sailor, row, sailor. Row. Come on, row, 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 row. Come on, sailors, row, row, row.
A good taste of Tuk Band there, and our wonderful landship dance with the Pinelands Creative Workshop. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the finale is going to feature Dance in Africa and Pompasetter's Tuk Band. And at the end of their performance, as they go towards the exit, you will stand to allow for the exit of our Governor General, and the heads of government, and special guests, and then you will allow them all to lead you dancing to the reception in the Lighthouse Gardens. Okay? So please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome now to the stage in our finale, in this section of our performance and our celebration this evening, Dance in Africa and Pompasetter's Tuk Band. Thank you.